The Queen of Granada, by M. Riff. Chapter 185, The Wreck. Rita turned off the heat under the pan and continued to the VW bus. She put Espanto on the bed, laid down next to him, and soon they both fell asleep. She dreamed that they were in the rose garden. Nuria, with a rose in her hand, was playing by the pool in the center of the garden. She plucked the leaves of the rose one by one, threw them into the water, and followed them with her eyes as they floated and disappeared in the canals on their way to herb beds. Tobar had spotted some cannabis plants in a corner of the garden. He had rolled a joint, sitting at a stone table, was smoking it. Pal sat across from him, hunched over a chessboard, thoughtfully moving the pieces, replaying the famous Fischer-Spassky chess match from a book. Meanwhile, Rosen and Rita were inside the main building diligently cleaning. Smelling cannabis, Rosen came outside, looked at Tobar and said in a reproachful tone, "The cannabis plants here are for medicinal purposes only. Smoking them just for pleasure brings bad luck." Turning her attention to Nuria, she added, "Could you please gather a basket of roses for your grandma? She's nearly finished distilling the ones you picked earlier. Afterward, you can use some of the rose water for your dolls." Rita's sleep was abruptly interrupted by an eerie sound, a mixture of blunt and cutting noise all at once. At first, she thought that the storm had partially detached some eaves and soon it would crash down and hit the road like a bomb. But it continued. At last, she stood up, drew aside the curtain, and looked out into the street. The storm whipped the rain in all directions, and it was difficult to see where it was happening. It looked like a tow truck was unloading something in front of the house. It seemed as if Tobar had bought a totally damaged car to fix it up and they were about to deliver it to the door. Rita crossed the kitchen and in the hallway, she grabbed her raincoat from the hook on the wall. She slipped her feet into her jogging shoes and, without tying the laces, stomped her heels down as she headed for the front door. In a tough fight against the storm, she managed to put on the raincoat and hold the hood firmly on her head with both hands. She was about to open the front door when she felt Espanto at her feet. Obviously, the cat felt the same inner turmoil inside when it had chosen to leave the warm bed and come to the door. Taking one arm out of the raincoat sleeve, Rita lifted the cat up and partially covered it with the coat to protect it from the rain. She opened the door. Under the dim street lighting, it took her a while to make out what was going on. A military crane that looked like a massive bird of prey had a car wreck in its beak. It surprised her that the military had chosen to be involved in handing over a damaged car. It even looked like the same military crane that had delivered the Land Rover to their doorstep once before, when Tobar had rolled in it into the military zone near the bridge. Rita looked closely at the wreckage. She couldn't believe her eyes. With great difficulty she could recognize the Land Rover, or what was left of it. Finally, the crane operator, with great help from a uniformed person who stood behind the crane and shouted instructions to him, managed to position the wreck close to the wall of the house. The military man, whose face was partially hidden under the dark green raincoat, started to come towards Rita. She recognized the man immediately. It was the same officer who had also delivered the Land Rover on the previous occasion. Speechless and as if she was in the middle of a nightmare, Rita muttered, "What happened?" The officer pointed to the partially torn license plate hanging loose from the wreckage and explained, "We decided to bring it directly to the address." He added, "The Land Rover was overtaking a lorry on a sharp bend." Rita had difficulty comprehending the officer's words as he continued, "It was about to collide head-on with our military convoy. To avoid the collision, the driver of the Land Rover pulled the car to the side of the road. But unfortunately, he hit the guardrail and lost control. The car overturned and plunged down the cliffs. We had to lower a soldier with a crane cable to locate the wreckage. Unfortunately, there was no sign of those in the car, dead or alive."